Hey guys, what's going on? So in this video we're going to be going over the buffs and nerf to the heroes, as well as the Protianus nerf. I did decide to release this one directly after the patch note instead of doing the in-game video first, because I just wanted to wrap up the patch note as a whole so we can move on to the other stuff. So I'm going to be using the footage that I recorded in the first part because everything in there is still solid and fine, and nothing has really been changed since then, obviously. And of course, I'm going to be adding my thoughts on the Tsunami skill from Protianus, because again, like I said in my previous video, I forgot to do that. So without further ado, here is past Moga. This one is Mirianne, even though it doesn't say it here. I guess they forgot to put that in, but yeah. I don't know much about Mirianne. Don't have her. It looks like she's getting a pretty straight buff though. Her skill 1 is getting an increase in duration, so the target lock-on duration. She'll now deal extra im damage to the locked-on enemy, and the locked-on enemy's im block rate is decreased by 300. So I think most DPS don't really build for im block, but any natural im block they had is just going away. So it's basically gonna ignore block unless you're really stacking the block on. And her skill 4, it says when the locked on enemy dies, target lock on is inflicted on another enemy for 10 seconds. So you don't even have to recast the skill. As long as you can kill the enemy while it's locked on, it'll just move over to someone else and reset its duration. That's pretty cool. She'll be having it changed to one of her transcendence perks as well, gaining CC immunity while using the skill 2 instead of a damage and shield increase. CC immunity, in my opinion, is extremely important in Arena, so I can imagine we'll have some people switching over to this perk. Her unique weapon, which again, it just says changed, so I can't see what it was like before. I assume it's another buff since Mirianne was pretty mediocre. She might be pretty good now though. Any Mirianne users, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Also, a pretty big range increase on her auto attack. NYX got nerfed, big surprise, big surprise. While his Transcendence perk doesn't really change much here, no one really used the knock back an enemy with 30% chance, I guess, on his skill 3. And his damage will be increased by 70% when there are 5 blade stacks or more, so who cares? I really only use NYX in Arena, probably not going to anymore. His auto attack damage is getting nerfed again. I have a 2-star unique weapon for him, so 0, 1, 2. It's 57% now, and it will be 43% after the patch goes up. So I'm losing 14% damage from that, but I can gain up to 10% damage if I have 6 blade stacks, but that's never gonna happen in Arena, especially because the blade stacks can get dispelled. So future Moga here again to correct a mistake from past Moga, that damn noob. Okay, so I misunderstood something about NYX's unique weapon change. I thought this meant that you get 4, 4.8, 5.7, 5.9, and you get this damage stated here depending on how many blade stacks you have. But this is actually the different unique weapon star levels as it is up there. I should have realized that, but I guess I was just being a little bit pessimistic and wanted to see it like that. But so let's take our 2-star unique weapon example again. Before the patch, we got 57 extra damage, and now that's getting nerfed to 43. So with that, we're at negative 14 damage total. But after the patch, we will get an additional 5.7% damage per stack. So that means, yes, when you don't have any blade stacks, it'll just be a straight nerf. But as soon as you have 3 blade stacks, you're already at 17.1% additional damage, which is more than you had before. At 6 blade stacks or max blade stacks, you're actually at 34.2% additional damage. So it looks like his max total damage is much higher than it was before. It's just that it takes longer to get there, obviously. So I still think it's a nerf for PvP, which is where I use him mostly and where a lot of other people use him, but it's still a buff to overall potential damage output. Again, like I might say in a little bit, or like I said a little bit earlier, if they made his blade stacks undispellable, he would be at a perfect spot in my opinion. He wouldn't be too op, I would say, but those blade stacks might mean something in Arena because there are dispellers running around everywhere, so he could get those 3 blade stacks, be at his like similar damage as he was before, and then, you know, keep that instead of it just getting dispelled immediately. So sorry for the interruption, Mr. Misinforming Moga. You can talk again. If the blade stacks couldn't get dispelled, then it might be an okay change. They really should change that. Make his blade stacks undispellable and we have a deal. Lewisia is getting a straight buff, cooldown reduction on skill 1 and 2 from 10 to 8 and 15 to 12 respectively, and a death penetration add-on to her skill 4, because it just says new here, so I assume she'll keep everything on her skill 4. It's just that she'll also get defense penetration, when above 50% HP. Viska's also getting changed, which I think there are some pretty good changes here. Skill 1 is just getting a damage increase. Skill 3 is actually getting its push effect changed to a stun for 3 seconds, which was a popular Transcendence perk to choose for her, because especially in like auto battles and stuff, you don't want her pushing all the enemies into your backline, which is what would happen sometimes. So that's actually cool. And an add-on to her passive skill, she'll recover 300 mana per each soul stacked. And because skill 3 got changed to the stun, the Transcendence perk is also getting changed to a reduction in mana cost instead of the previous effect, because that's just a given now. Her skill 4 light is now going to be reducing CC resistance by 250 for 10 seconds. So maybe something for arena, for people that are building CC resistance, which I guess some people actually are. Some of the higher tier players, I guess, are having a lot of CC resistance because that's what kind of rules. And her T5 Dark is getting changed for the better, in my opinion. Per each stacked soul, crit chance is increased by 50% and crit damage is increased by 30%. So I think she can have 5 souls, maybe more with a perk, but that's 250 crit chance and like 150 crit damage. That's quite a lot. There's also the Protianus nerf here. I'll be sure to record my run today, see if it's any better or worse. We can quickly go over his changes here. Deadly Trident was the thing that removed buffs from your heroes while stunning them. So the stun is getting removed, but now you will have your crit chance cut by 500 for 18 seconds, and that can't be dispelled. So that's going to be a huge DPS loss unless you have like Cassandra that can buff it up by another 700. I definitely might have to consider bringing Cassandra in there now. The damage on it will be reduced by 20%, and the cooldown is getting an extra 10 seconds on it, so he can only do it every 28 seconds instead of 18 seconds. So I think that's pretty good. And then Brush Away, his like only non-problem skill, isn't getting changed much for that reason. Damage will be decreased by a bit and the cooldown is getting reduced a little bit, so not really a huge change there. Water Prison Lockdown is getting changed though, so in this section it's definitely for the worst, because so it'll chain onto random targets every 3 seconds now instead of 5 seconds, which is pretty bad at first, but when we read the other section, the Water Prison, it'll make more sense probably. The damage will be decreased by 15% and the cooldown is getting a 3-second addition to it, so he won't be able to do it as often, but almost as often. We're gonna skip Tsunami for now and go to Water Prison because that kind of correlates to Water Prison Lockdown. So this is getting a huge nerf in my opinion. They will be broken out of it only 10 seconds after it's cast instead of 20 seconds. You will only lose 1500 mana instead of 3000 mana when you're broken out of it. Your skill cooldowns won't be completely reset, but they'll be 70% reset, so it's still going to be a pretty big hit, but not as bad. The permanent attack cut will be 15% instead of 30%, and if you can deal P damage 100 times within 10 seconds, none of those effects will happen and the skill will be dispelled. Sadly though, this skill won't be dispelled even if the boss's CC gauge drops down to 0. So this is a huge deal for me because this is always how I got out of the Water Prison. I never feared Water Prison that much because I could bring him down pretty often, often enough so that it would be a rare occurrence that the Water Prison would keep me from being able to bring him down, because the casting animation for that is pretty long. So even if he does it as soon as he gets up, most of the time I'll be able to bring him down before it starts affecting the really important units, because it'll go to like fill up first and then someone random, and then before it goes to a third random person, I can bring him down. Now, however, it'll stay up even if the boss goes down, and it will chain to another random one every 3 seconds instead of 5 seconds. So dealing P damage 100 times will be a lot harder when everyone's in a bubble. Of course, it will last only 10 seconds instead of 20, but that 15% damage reduction, I guess, stacks up higher and higher. So I don't know, total damage might be even lower than it was before, we'll have to wait and see. Besides that, his stat gauge has increased, but recovery has decreased. This means you'll need more total CC to bring him down, but he won't recover his bar as fast. So Future Moga again, now we're taking a look at Tsunami, because I forgot to do that. Okay, so Tsunami is probably one of his worst skills ever, probably even worse than Water Prison, at least how it was before. But that's getting a pretty big nerf as well. We are starting with a buff to the percent of chance to stun, because it used to be a 30% chance to stun, and that's going up to a 100% chance to stun. Thankfully though, that stun is getting reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. Also, probably the most annoying thing about the Tsunami was the mana reduction, and that's getting a pretty hard nerf as well, going to 600 per second instead of 1000 per second. So in case anyone's unaware, 1000 mana per second is one entire orb. 600 is a little bit over over half of 1 orb, so it's still very manageable. If most of your heroes gain mana at a decent rate, they should be able to still cast skills even while under this influence. Also, the attack reduction while inflicted with the Tsunami debuff is getting a massive nerf, going from 60% to 25%. It still can't be dispelled, but it wasn't able to be dispelled beforehand, so that's not really a big deal. And also the damage is getting decreased by 15%. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the balance part of the patch note. If you have any thoughts regarding the balances, make sure to drop them down there in the comments below. If you've already tried a few world boss runs, tell me what you think about them. I'm going to be doing some today as well. I'll record that, throw it up here probably tomorrow, because I'm going to be having like 3 videos today, so definitely not going to go for a 4th one, so I'll probably be doing that tomorrow. But yeah, if you've already experienced World Boss 2, and if you notice a significant change either for the better or for the worse, make sure to drop that down there. Leaving a like would also be greatly appreciated if you did happen to enjoy. Thanks, as always, for watching, and until next time.